Until you got to finish.
Until January, and then there's a show that comes out of Juneau called Talk of Alaska, and they covered what was going on that show, and it's a call-in show, so everybody can call in and talk. And then there was an article in the paper, and now there seems to be more news now of what's really happening rather than, oh my God, we're being radiated, kind of stuff. That's the only thing that's out there. But the long-range thing is that it's going to take them 40 years to clean up the mess, to get all those nuclear rods from the reactor out of position and stored for long term. So until that, 40 years of minimal amounts of radiation is still a lot.
Oh, yes.
So that's the concern now. Doing heart breath for the North Pacific Ocean and Japan and the Japanese people so they can do their job.
Yes, good point.
Well done, folks.
Hello.
Hello. That sounds like a big deal. Well, welcome everybody. So, who is here?
Carol in Juneau.
Jerry in Juneau.
Honey Munder in Juneau.
Gooder Simran in LA.
Okay, so we've got Jerry and who else?
Gooder Simran here.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Who's here? It sounds
it's
like
Harry Inder.
Harry Inder. And the rest of the Juneau crowd, who are you? Jerry and who?
It was Carol and Honey Munder.
Oh, good. Welcome. Good. And who else is here?
Good evening.
Hi,
Julie.
dear.
Hi.
Who is that?
This is Julie in New York.
Oh, good. Welcome, Julie. And who else?
Saranam.
Hi, Saranam.
Hi.
And who
Gooder
else?
Simran. I'm going to get in there somehow.
Oh, yeah, there she is. Gooder Simran. And who else?
Hargoben.
Hargoben. Welcome. And who else?
Suzanne.
Good. And who else?
This is Sohan Kaur from Texas.
Who from Texas?
Sohan Kaur.
We're in Texas.
Sohan?
I'm in Austin, yes.
Sohan Kaur.
Yes. Formerly of Florida.
Oh, wonderful. And who else? Okay. Well, welcome, everybody. Welcome. I was just checking to see if I had any messages from Rahmani. Please excuse me while I look that up. So, as you all know, well, I don't know if you all know or not, we had some messages from Rahmani yesterday saying that, we haven't heard from them in a few weeks. No, I don't see anything. Okay. Everybody knows that Tomas has had Parkinson's for a long time, and that he doesn't have his oxygen. He didn't have his oxygen on, and he wasn't interested in eating or drinking. So, consequently, he gets to go home pretty soon. So, God bless him. So, we are sending our heart breath. We are sending our prayers to support Tomas and also Rahmani. It can be a challenging time for the spouse. And I'm sure that Tomas is just going to jump I don't see any problem for him. Okay. So, here we go. Everybody, please begin looking at your third eye point. And begin long, deep breath. Good. And understand what we're tuning into. We are tuning into what's called the Golden Chain of Teachers. And we are going to feel their presence. Again, this is a part of what Baba Siri Chand calls the council. Okay, the council of higher being. Understand that that's what we're tuning into. And inhale to begin. Long, deep breathing. That's it. Long, deep breathing. From the belly, through the nose. Good. Keep up. And begin heart breath, please. Begin heart breath. Good. And now please send that heart breath to each one in our group. We are going to build the energy first. Please send the heart breath energy to each one in our group, even if they're not here, and receive it. That's it. Keep up. And now, please, with all your heart, please send your heart breath to our precious friends, Tomas and Rahmane. Please feel that you're putting your arms around them, sending them love, giving them both the beautiful freedom of spirit. True care for them. Good. Tomas there with Baba Siri Chand, Guru Ram Das, and Yogi Bhajan. That's it. Opening. Wonderful. And we will hold them in our hearts. And I will let you know when I hear something. Good. And now please keep up your heart breath. And as usual, we are sending our heart breath to the people who call themselves leaders of this country. And then also to the Middle East. Good. Good. Now inhale and exhale, and you can keep up with heart breath if you like. Okay, so Baba Siri Chand is here. And he's saying today we're going to talk about sadness and grief. Yes, sir. What about it? He said sadness and grief are both very human. He calls them executable phenomena. Sir, what do you mean? He says, well, what I mean is that, he says, we don't have those things on this side. He says, sadness and grief are a situation of the human psyche. He says the reason that they were put there, he says, and by all means they are very normal. This is not abnormal in the human psyche. He says the reason that they were put there is so that we could experience this extremes of being. He says we have a lot of compassion for you in that place because he says we don't have those ups and downs. We just have the fullness. He says, but you also may gravitate towards, and you may also encounter and be a part of the fullness at any time. You already do that. You just go into your heart breath, move into soul, and here you are. He says sadness, and he says sadness. Sadness is put there so that you may understand the difficulties of the human nature. He says you are always trying to be happy. He says you are always trying to be, this is generally speaking, always trying to be part of the world and hoping and expecting that your world will be happy in the ways you want it to be happy. He says if we left you with small consciousness, he says, which is seeing consciousness through a pinhole, he says that's the journey of the soul when on earth. He says don't get discouraged about that. He says be elated by that. He says this is your journey now. He says, in fact, yes, you are members of the Council of Being. He says, but you, in your courage and in your bravery, you have chosen this path to see the consciousness, to move through the gray, the dark, and to come back through the light. This is the journey that you have chosen as a member of creation and as the heart of the Creator. He says you have chosen to take on separate consciousness for, he says, actually for the glory of he calls it the communication of the universe. Sir, what does that mean? He says there would be no universe, there would be no creation if aspects of the Creator did not, did not make itself small in order to be in creation. So he says that's the job you've taken on. And in that job you take both the light and the dark, and you make your journey with it. That's what's going on now. So he said, if there were no sadness, if there were no grief, then you would not turn around and look for the light. He says, I know many people get stuck in them. He says, but you have jillions of journeys, in other words, many lifetimes to work that through. So sadness is it's kind of like a scrubbing mechanism in our hearts. It actually magnetizes. You have one event that causes you sadness, but when the sadness comes on, if you don't change it right away, it will draw on more and more sadness in your life, from other people's life, from the world around you. He says this was a very important lesson, that your sadness becomes a magnet for more and more sadness. He says, so at this point, he says there are times when sadness is totally appropriate. Totally appropriate. For instance, with what Brahmani is going through right now, it is sad to lose her lifelong companion. The same with grief. When you change, when things are separated from you, there is grief. He says, so please keep up the breath. He says that healing breath, please keep it up. And he says, please let your sadness come up. Any sadness that you have or that you have magnetized, please let it come up. As you are doing your healing breath. Let the sadness come up. You may find that you have sadness for having lost a toy as a child. You may have sadness for the world. You may have sadness for that airliner that was lost. You may have sadness from many past lives where there were hurricanes or natural disasters, plagues that have still been part of your psyche. Keep up the breath. Good. And allow the sadness from every aspect. He calls it from every corpuscle of your being. Let it be drawn. This is kind of like a detoxification of sadness. He says the reason we're doing this is not only for Rachmani and Tomas. He says it is also, he says, for all your brethren. In other words, all of your sisters and brothers, the ones that you know and the ones that you don't know. He says it's a way of transforming it from this age in creation. He says as we move further into the Aquarian time, you will find that people, when they have crossed these borders, when they have done this work, they are not so sad. He says that's what it is to come into union. He says, of course, you do it bit by bit. He says coming all at once is pretty disorganizing and kind of dangerous because things like sadness and grief get misplaced. They mix up things if you do it too fast. He says we're doing it in perfect time. He says when I say too fast, I mean in a flash. I know, he says, oftentimes people in this world, they say, well, why can't I come to God in a flash? Well, if we haven't done our homework, it doesn't work out quite right. So keep up the healing breath and allow the sadness to come up. Maybe you have lost a loved one. Maybe things didn't work out in your life the way you wanted them to, the way you thought you should, or perhaps you were looking forward to a difficulty. He says not that sadness and grief are bad. They're not. It's just that they're difficult. That's it. Keep up the breath. And it is fine if you happen to see those scenarios playing out again. But each time they do, each time they run through, he says, please see the sadness pouring out, like detoxing. Good. He says, and now we're going to do the same thing with grief. Grief has more to do with loss. Let your grief come forward. Respect it. Respect your grief. This is not something you were trying to pound out of you, but something that you are giving back to God for the sake of wholeness. It has made you a more aware person, more sensitive person, more compassionate person. So do you see, these are the tools of the evolving person. That's it. Keep up. Keep up. He says, as you allow the grief, as you allow the grief to be torn from you, that's what he said, as you allow it to come up, and he says there is grief when it feels as though this preciousness or this precious thing or this precious person is torn from you. That is when grief arises. He says, please let these precious things, these precious people in your lives that you have lost. He says, of course, it could be through dying. It could be through a difficult divorce. It could be a job you wanted, a job that you lost. It could be any number of things. He says, now, my sweet ones, now is the time to send that to God. Send it to the One. Send it to the central recycling bin. In all your sacredness, in all your divinity, in all your happiness and kindness, it's like a precious, dear, we're going to just call it a thing, not to depersonalize it, but just to call it something, the most precious thing ever, and we are giving it with all of our heart to our Creator, to the true consciousness that made them all. Please send it with the most love, the most awareness, the most beautiful giving to the Source, to the God of all. Keep up your heart breath. And let it all flow out of you. Every one of us probably has a number of these situations. Please keep letting it flow to its most conscious, its most loving source, where you know it will be most carefully and kindly taken care of. You're not throwing it away. You are giving it out of your heart. It or the person this is your offering. He says this is what is meant from the Old Testament in terms of sacrifice. He said it was not to slaughter a young lamb and then eat it up. He says that's not a sacrifice. He says it is a sacrifice of your heart out of sheer, pure devotion. Pure devotion. Knowing that you have not actually lost anything, but you have given up ownership. Do you see the difference? You have not lost anything, but you are giving up ownership. Giving up the ownership to your beloved. That's it. Keep up. And allow forgiveness. Allow forgiveness. As you do that, as you have given up sadness, as you are giving up grief, keep up the heart breath. And begin to feel the expansion. Because this is a two-way street. We said that we gave it up to the infinite cycling machine or consciousness, recycling machine. And now what's happening is that beautiful energy can now pour back into you. Pour back into you in terms of love, kindness, compassion, sacredness. Keep up the breath. That's it. Knowing who you are. Knowing who you are. That's it. He says, now do you feel what's coming back to you? This is like a little spring coming up out of the earth. Do you feel that sacred filling? That extraordinary feeling of being filled. But it's on a different level. It is on the more sensitive level. It is on the more sacred level. Do you feel it flowing back into you? The exchange is being made. Feel it. Drink it in. Let yourself be nourished. You have certainly discovered a new level within yourself. He calls it a new formula of being, which is being present. Being present in the sacredness. Being present in the openness, in the loving, in the compassion, in the walking in their shoes, in the knowing that you have loved and given. In the knowing that you are free and free to give all back to the Creator, back to the Source. And in that, your union is made. Your union is made by giving back to the Source, letting it all flow. This is such a human value, but one that takes us deeper and deeper to the truth, the knowing, the feeling, the consciousness of pure love and understanding of pure cycle. Comes and goes. No matter how much we hold on, all comes and goes. And there is pure gratitude for what we know, what we are, what beautiful relationships we enjoy. So much gratitude, not taken for granted anymore. No, not taken for granted, but pure gratitude of this sharing. That's it. Keep opening. Right. He says, and this is the real enjoyment of who you are. This real enjoyment of who you are, to give up piece by piece to the Creator Source. That's what it's about, my dear ones. He says you are doing beautifully. He says just keep up the heart breath and carry this in your heart so that you know, so that you understand how to work through this. So that you understand the beauty of your relationships, whether they be with people, things, or situations now. He says you've heard of non-attachment. He says you may even look at things and people and situations as belonging to the God Source. And at every moment, even while you have them, you are grateful for the Source and sharing them with you. You see? Being grateful that the Source is sharing these beautiful relationships with you now. Your life, your love. Good. And now a special heart breath again to Rahmani and Tomas. And inhale. And exhale. And breathe. Breathe. And be present. And now, my dear ones, he says, please share. He says, please share from the bottom of your heart. Please share your experience, your revelation. Who can come forward first? Hello? Hadiinder? Hadiinder? Would you like to come forward?
Sorry, I have to unmute myself.
Yeah.
I have one of those phones that somehow you go to a different screen before you unmute yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So what I really felt mostly today with this beautiful lesson is the sadness for Rahmani and Tomas. And even though I myself experienced losses of my sister, and when I was breathing into it, I couldn't actually release it. I kept saying and saying to myself that I would miss his voice and I would miss his presence. So it was good that I did those hard breaths, but I'm still sad. Sadly enough, when I started this conference, I wasn't as sad as I am now. And I think I'm just a very sensitive person, a very empathic person. So, and I know that here on Earth we grieve and we have this sadness. And I know that from my own personal experience with my sister, when she crossed over the company of heaven, we're celebrating, and I was miserable. But I know all of that, but nonetheless, I allow myself to feel that, and I feel that it's okay. It's okay that I'm feeling this sadness, and it's okay that I am in this present moment, and that's what it's interesting. But this whole lesson was for me dedicated to Tamar and Rahmani.
Was dedicated to?
Yeah, to Tomas and Rahmani. It was like the whole thing was for me to work this out again. And I think that brought probably past experiences that I went through with my own personal life. Mm-hmm. But it's not, I don't want to say, to bring the vibration down, energy down. It wasn't something that I'm excruciating, but it's just a sadness and understanding. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's all. That kind of, and I feel like it's okay too to be in that space.
It is.
It's not a miserable space. It's a space that I feel is just okay. It's part of our experience, and it's just okay. I'm not tortured by it.
Good. It's our sensitivity, and you may be abiding with them in real time as well. That may be what's happening. He says, yes, that's it.
I love Baba Siri Chand. He always says yes.
Yeah, he is. Well, thank you, dear. Thank you, and bless you.
Thank you.
Who else can share?
I think I can, Siri Gian, Suzanne.
Oh, good.
Well, first of all, I was really glad that we talked about sadness and grief, because lately I have felt sadness and grief, but I have no reason. I mean, like, an unusual, like I keep looking over my shoulder, like, what is this about?
Mm-hmm.
And not understanding, except, yes, I have a friend who's dying. All those things are very much a part of my life, but it's not that. This is an overriding sense of sadness and grief. And I think it's odd. Hopefully I'm going with it leaving versus that it's going through me and out. I would prefer that.
Mm-hmm.
Then another thing I have to notice, the words seem to be around me.
What's going on here? Okay, keep talking and let's see if it keeps up. Go ahead.
Just in a series, literally in the series of 4 books I've read, Resurrection, Transformation, everything we talked about today, that it's beyond just the way the concept of resurrection in religious senses, that it was even meant to be something much more cosmic, much more evolutionary. Mm-hmm. And I find that so very interesting that it keeps coming up. I think it's not just for me to hear. I think we're all, those that want to hear it are hearing it. Do you hear it?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And have you reached any conclusions, any ideas?
It puts it for the pain that I've been through in my life, or the things that I've had to go through. It makes resurrection touchable. It makes transformation make sense. And that if we were all taught it, there would be more acceptance of it. That it's I use the word rite of passage, but there's a deeper awareness that you acquire. So that's why I was glad to hear these words, although I'm going to use the word distant religious terms, but in reality, they are spiritual evolutionary terms that we need to, they're not a distant thing. They're very much a part of our, like what you just said, and it makes sense to me. But me going through it now, I don't know if it's making sense and everyone's getting these words now, or it was meant to be, I think it was meant to be that we would understand this a long, long time ago. But I feel like that the comprehension of it is, for me, is coming very clearly, and maybe, or very clearly. Seems to be something I'm becoming aware of.
Wonderful, wonderful. And how these are really aspects or tools of the divine within the human. And they're not things to run away from. What I was just hearing is that in the past, because these feelings like this and more, are so scary to people, they don't know what to do with them. So instead of taking them back to the Creator, allowing themselves to go deeper and deeper, we have tried our best to control them. And we try our best to control them with, like you said, scripture that is from the outside, telling us what is right and wrong and not what is real. And really going into deep compassion, deep heart. So these are the things that are changing, really from, how can I say, the deepest level within humankind as we move into the Aquarian age. And yes, he says there is sadness and grief that's going on. And I've been talking to people, who have none of this kind of background, and they are saying that people are acting wilder, more sort of outrageous. I also have a feeling that people are, with liberation this, liberation that, being more open and really expressing their terror instead of trying to suppress it. So I bet that we could use these principles that we've learned today in all sorts of matters. So thank you so much, Suzanne. We would really love to know how it progresses with you. If you would like to share on the forum, we would like to know that.
Okay.
Aloha.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to share?
Aloha. It's
I'm
here. How are you? Well, I wanted to share more on the experiential level. Since I started the last few weeks since I've been doing this work at this time of the night, it's iffy. Sometimes the parents come or not, so I'm not as present as I want to be. So I listen to the recordings later again, but I still sit with a group each time. Sometimes I can't speak, and as soon as everything started to happen, one of the things that happened is I could feel my resistance to the dialogue about grief and pain. Although many times I opened very clearly, it was this facade of, not wanting to go there, So I saw the resistance, and then I kind of witnessed the resistance, and so my judgment is like the reason I've learned, I have learned to give it all away, especially to Baba and Guru Ram Das, but just to give it away to the divine in me and the divine throughout. But I remember times when and I still do it sometimes, where it's almost like wanting to get better before giving it away. It's kind of like trying to lose weight before going to the gym, It's kind of that insane thought that I have to be better. I remember I didn't pray until I was 35, and I remember thinking, because I wasn't good enough to ask God for anything. So all of that is purifying still. But one of the things that happened that was interesting, baby cried, I went, Mom is here, now I can sit here. And I came back a couple of minutes later, and you were inviting us to receive the energy back that we've been giving away. And I thought, well, I didn't do much, but I'll just sit here, again, self-judging. And I could just feel this wave of love and understanding and compassion, everything you were describing before you were describing it. And I felt very loved, because here I am resisting, complaining, judging, but still showing up enough that saying I want this to shift. And I'm still being gifted with this energy. I'm still being healed. I don't have to do it perfectly. I don't have to understand every word. I just have to show up and desire to be happy and free. And
accept it.
Exactly, and accept it. And one of the things that I know deeply within is that all this grief and everything I've been going through, all this huge movement that I've been going through for a few years, and it seems to be coming to a climax right now, it hasn't been for naught. It's just that more light's been coming in, and it's pushing away everything that is not light. It's pushing away everything that is not. And I really trust that. I really trust that. And I even declared today on Facebook, it's like, I don't want to work so hard at having this perfect life anymore. I just want to enjoy it and really trust and have faith and dance with it and just let go. I've been making myself sick for more than 50 years trying to be better.
And now just accept that you are better.
That's just it. It's just I'm good. Not even good enough. I'm good.
There you go.
I'm good. And it's just and it's funny because this message came in earlier, even before the call, and I just want to reassure, share with anybody who can't perfectly listen to it. I'm still being loved. I'm still being given that energy. I'm still being, I'm just willing. That's right. So thank you. Thank you. Mahalo.
God bless you, dear. Thank you. Okay. So now, who else can share? We're going to take one more person.
Satnam. Hi, this is Margot.
Say it again?
Margot, I'm in Los Angeles. Hi.
Hi.
How are you? This is really great today because like all the calls, this was very, very specific to what's going on in my life, because I just recently switched companies with my work. And it's been a long time coming because they just weren't respecting me. And I think they were kind of threatened by me. I've been becoming more and more successful, and I think I work in real estate. So and I also teach Kundalini Yoga. So there's kind of two forces at play. And when I finally left the company, I felt this tremendous sadness, like I was breaking up with a boyfriend or something. And it happened on Saturday.
Recent.
Yeah, it's very recent. And I'm kind of caught between, I've been trying to kind of check in with my heart and get real, because the other company, I was one of the top agencies in Los Angeles, and I just left to go to like the bottom of the barrel. But they weren't respecting me at this other agency. So, but my heart is still with them. So it's been very clouded. I'm trying to kind of move through the grief and learn how to stand up for myself. So it was just nice to hear those comforting words, and I still don't understand why this is all happening and whether I should go back to the old company or not.
Why would you go back to the old company?
Well, why is my heart still there? You know, I should feel this tremendous relief, but in fact, I feel grief. I feel regret and grief over leaving them.
You made many, many relationships there, didn't you? Even though, as a whole, they didn't respect you. Is that true?
Yes, that is true.
Okay. So keep up with this work that Baba Siri Chand has taught us. And then, giving it up to Source, letting yourself become deeper, more compassionate, feeling the love, feeling the sacredness and the gratitude, basically, of what you did have there. Even though there were things that you didn't have, there were things that you did have.
Exactly.
And you can still meet the people that you love. You can meet them out of work,
Exactly.
catch up with them and so on.
I've been trying to kind of take the positive route here. I actually talked to the main broker, and he said that everybody is very hurt by me and my actions. And I was so shocked, because I don't want to make this all about me. I'm so sorry. But it's just so interesting that, in fact, I was the one that was getting, people were like verbally abusing me. I mean, it's luxury real estate in Beverly Hills, so you can imagine how cutthroat it gets with these huge, $20 million deals that people are, like what you said earlier, someone was saying that people are starting to lose their minds, and it really is happening. I just see these realtors and these clients just go absolutely nuts. And I don't react because I just don't want to get involved, but I'm learning maybe I do need to stand up for myself when people just go ballistic.
Yeah, just stand there in grace and do heart breath.
I see. I just don't know if I should, because now that I found out that everybody is so hurt by me over at this company, if I should reach out to them and try to apologize even though I've done nothing wrong, or just give them a heart breath. I would not
apologize, but you might send them a love letter of some sort. Not a mushy love letter, but telling them that that your relationships there were special and so on.
Yeah, they definitely were.
Okay, and because of the nature of the business, you might find that this really top company might even be more cutthroat. Is that a
absolutely.
Huh?
Absolutely. Yes, that's exactly what's happening.
Okay. So now you have chosen to go from the frying pan to the fire and use what you've learned, dear. Use what you've learned. Okay.
Exactly.
You say, this has even greater opportunities for me to stay in my grace.
Exactly. I mean, I think about it from a holistic perspective. It's my life going, why on earth would I ever want to work in real estate if I'm this kind of spiritual person? And it comes back to me all the time, well, your soul is really going on an exponential path, because I do put myself in harm's way every day with with these kind of, it's very third dimension. Like last week you were talking about the third dimension, fourth dimension. It's like that's really where I am, and that's where I think I need to be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's called your dojo, where you practice your martial arts.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually thought I saw you at Sadhana on Robertson. Do you ever go to Sadhana at Yoga West in Los Angeles?
No, I do my sadhana at home.
Oh, I go to sadhana because I'm so busy during the day. I go at 4 a.m, and I was like, "Is that Siri Gian?" But
well, good for you.
Oh my God, it's beautiful. It's incredible because you're with the whole group. There's usually like 6 or 12 people there. But I feel so bad everybody's listening to our private conversation. But thank you. I mean, to get through this, I guess I'll just do the heart breath and maybe write them a letter and just stand firm in my decision.
That you still love them. Well, you don't have to say love them. You care for them and all that you've been through. And just ask them to care for each other, because that was what you felt you weren't getting. And that may be your biggest challenge in this new place.
Is what, caring for the other agents? Well,
not being cared for because of the high competition.
Well, exactly. It's so interesting. I mean, I wasn't getting respected at this other company, and then I came to the new one, and I'm like the queen bee over there. They're giving me all this free office space, and and so of course, wouldn't I want to be in an environment like that? But I don't have access to all the super elite listings anymore for the other office, and that's important for my clients.
Right. So you listen to Soul, and you will find the answers.
Okay, thank you. I've been trying to do that, but the whole grief thing was completely unexpected. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But it's beautiful. It's part of the totality of the human experience. So I'm, grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Well, God bless you, dear. And again, we would love for you to share your journey on our Facebook page. Do you know what that is? Where to get it?
Oh, of course. Mm-hmm. Of course. Yeah, I read the Facebook page and everything.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. I think I've helped some people evolve.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So the work is never done.
That's it. We're in the flow.
We're in the flow, precisely. Thank you. Satnam. Of course.
Satnam. Okay, thank you all. And don't forget to allow this kindness, this love, this beauty, this preciousness to arise. Don't stay in the sadness, okay? Allow it, but allow it to change. Let it evolve, okay? And see all the beautiful hidden magic underneath. Sacred magic. Real, deep happiness that is not necessarily jumping up and down for joy, although sometimes it is, but just deep, abiding connection, being cared for. Okay, so now please sit straight, palms are together, begin long, deep breath. And sing this wonderful song to each other and receive it from each other. And inhale. May the long time sun shine upon you. Join me. All love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Guide your way on. Guide your way. And bow to your coziness, your kindness, and your love. And we'll talk to you next week. Satnam. Bye-bye.